Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that the world's most advanced fighter jets, electric cars, AI supercomputers, even the smartphone in your pocket could no longer be built, not because we ran out of oil, not because factories stopped working, but because of a group of minerals that most people have never even heard of, rare earth metals. The future of the global economy may depend on them, and right now, a silent battle is unfolding behind the scenes, a battle involving the world's biggest superpowers, one that could reshape technology, military power, and the balance of the global economy. But here's the strange part. Why have so few people heard about it? For decades, oil was the world's most valuable resource. Countries fought wars over it, built alliances around it, and measured power by who controlled it. But the world is changing. Today, artificial intelligence is transforming industries. Electric vehicles are replacing gasoline cars. Renewable energy is expanding. Advanced weapons are becoming smarter than ever. And all of them have one thing in common. They depend on materials that are incredibly difficult to replace. That's where the story begins. Despite the name, rare earth metals aren't necessarily rare. Many are found in different parts of the world. The real challenge is something else. Mining them is difficult. Separating them is even harder. Processing them safely requires expensive technology, specialized expertise, and careful environmental management. That makes the supply chain far more complex than most people imagine. So the question isn't simply, who has these minerals? It's, who can actually turn them into the materials the world needs? There are 17 rare earth elements. Names you've probably never heard before. Neodymium, dysprosium, terbium, praseodymium. They sound like something from a science fiction movie. But without them, modern technology would look completely different. The powerful magnets inside electric vehicle motors, the precision systems inside advanced aircraft, wind turbines, medical imaging equipment, smartphones, data centers supporting AI, all rely in different ways on these critical materials. And demand is growing every year. But if they're so important, who controls the supply? Imagine building the world's fastest electric car. You have the engineers, the factory, the software, the investors. Everything is ready until one shipment never arrives. Production stops, not because your factory failed, but because one critical material is missing. Now imagine that happening, not to one company, but to entire industries. Suddenly, a handful of minerals become more powerful than billions of dollars in investment. And that's exactly why governments are paying close attention. For years, most people ignored the story. Rare earths stayed buried deep underground, far away from headlines, far away from financial news, far away from everyday life. But while the world focused on oil, something else was happening. Quietly, patiently, one country was building an advantage that would take decades to create. At first, almost nobody noticed. By the time the world finally looked, the balance of power had already started to shift. Today, almost every nation agrees on one thing. The technologies that will define the future, AI, electric vehicles, clean energy, advanced defense systems, all depend on reliable access to critical minerals. That's why countries are investing billions to secure new supplies, expand processing, and reduce dependence on single sources. Because whoever builds the strongest supply chain could shape the industries of tomorrow. But here's the biggest question of all. If everyone knows these minerals are so important, why did the world wait so long to act? The answer leads to one country that saw the future long before everyone else. While much of the world was chasing oil, one country was quietly chasing something far more strategic. China, not with headlines, not with dramatic speeches, but with long-term planning. For decades, Chinese companies invested in mining, built processing facilities, developed specialized expertise, and strengthened supply chains that many other countries had largely overlooked. Year after year, the gap grew wider, until one day, the world realized it had become deeply dependent on China's rare earth processing industry. And by then, changing course would not be easy. Here's what makes this story so surprising. Finding rare earth minerals is only the beginning. Turning raw or into materials that manufacturers can actually use is the hardest part. The refining process is expensive, technically demanding, and often comes with significant environmental challenges that require careful regulation. That's why many countries mine fewer rare earths or relied on processing elsewhere. China chose a different path. It invested across the entire supply chain, mining, refining, manufacturing. Step by step, it built an ecosystem that became incredibly difficult to match. So the real advantage wasn't just underground. It was everything built above the ground. Then the world changed. Electric vehicles started replacing gasoline cars. Artificial intelligence exploded. Wind farms expanded across continents. Defense technology became more advanced. Suddenly, demand for critical minerals accelerated, and governments began asking the same question. What happens if access to these materials is disrupted? That question changed everything. The United States responded. So did Japan, Australia, Canada, and countries across Europe. New mines were announced. Old mining projects reopened. Billions of dollars were committed to new processing facilities and supply chain partnerships. Not because rare earths suddenly appeared, but because countries realized depending too heavily on a single source could become a strategic risk. This wasn't just about business anymore. It had become a matter of national security. Imagine trying to build millions of electric cars without the materials needed for high-performance motors. Imagine manufacturing advanced fighter aircraft without specialized magnets. Imagine expanding AI infrastructure while key supply chains become uncertain. The technology still exists. The engineers are still there, but one missing link can slow everything down. That's why rare earths are often called critical minerals, not because they're magical, but because modern industries rely on them in countless ways. Then another race quietly began, the search for new deposits. From Australia to Canada to the United States to parts of Africa and South America, countries started exploring how to diversify supply. Mining companies expanded. Governments signed long-term agreements. Investors poured billions into projects that, only a few years earlier, had received far less attention. The goal wasn't necessarily to replace China overnight. It was to build a more resilient global supply chain. But that would take time, a lot of time, because building a mine isn't like building a warehouse. It can take years, sometimes more than a decade. Environmental reviews, permits, infrastructure, processing plants, skilled workers. Every step requires patience and billions of dollars. Meanwhile, demand keeps growing, and the world keeps moving toward AI, electric transportation, and advanced manufacturing. The clock is already ticking. So here's the question. Can the rest of the world build new supply chains fast enough? Or has the race already been decided? The answer may determine not just who dominates the next generation of technology, but who shapes the future of the global economy. History has always been shaped by those who control the world's most valuable resources. Centuries ago, it was gold. Then, coal powered the Industrial Revolution. After that, oil became the fuel of global power. But today, the resource that may define the next century doesn't flow through pipelines. It comes from deep beneath the ground, hidden inside rocks that most people will never see. And yet, they may decide who leads the future. Think about your daily life. The smartphone in your pocket. The electric car driving silently down the road. The AI systems answering millions of questions every second. Satellites orbiting. Wind turbines generating clean electricity. At first, they all seem completely different. But behind every one of them is the same hidden supply chain. One disruption, one political crisis, one major export restriction, and industries worth trillions of dollars could face serious challenges. That's how important these materials have become. This isn't just a competition between companies anymore. It's becoming a competition between nations. Countries are investing billions to secure critical mineral supplies. Mining projects are expanding. Processing facilities are being built. New international partnerships are forming, not because governments expect an immediate crisis, but because they don't want to be unprepared if one arrives. In today's world, economic security has become part of national security, and that changes everything. But here's the twist. No country can solve this challenge alone. Modern supply chains stretch across continents. A mineral may be mined in one country, refined in another, manufactured into components somewhere else, and finally assembled into products sold around the world. That's why cooperation can be just as important as competition. The future won't be shaped by one nation acting alone. It will be shaped by who builds the strongest and most reliable partnerships. Meanwhile, scientists are searching for alternatives. Engineers are designing technologies that use fewer rare earth elements. Companies are investing in recycling old electronics and electric vehicle batteries to recover valuable materials. Some breakthroughs have already happened. Many more are still being developed because everyone understands one thing. The safest supply chain is the one that can adapt. So, who will win this race? Will China maintain its advantage? Can the United States and its allies build resilient new supply chains? Will new technologies reduce dependence on rare earths? Or will an entirely new resource change the game once again? Today, no one knows for certain. But one thing is clear. The decisions being made right now will shape the industries of the next several decades. The biggest battles of the future may not be fought with tanks, or missiles, or fighter jets. They may begin inside laboratories, processing plants, mines, and factories, because in the 21st century, the nations that control critical technologies will hold extraordinary influence over the global economy, and behind many of those technologies stand a handful of minerals that most people have never heard of. The next time you pick up your phone, start your car, or ask AI a question, remember this. The future isn't powered by software alone. It's powered by the hidden materials that make that software possible. And while the world watches headlines, the real battle may already be happening, quietly, deep beneath the surface. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe to Rise from Zero for more untold stories about global power, hidden industries, AI, business, and the forces shaping our future. Because sometimes the most important stories are the ones almost nobody sees.